If this story touched your heart, we'd love to know. Where in the world are you watching from? Drop your country or city in the comments below and let's see how far this story has traveled. And if you believe in second chances, in love that heals and rebuilds, don't forget to hit that subscribe button. A brand new story, just as emotional, just as powerful, is coming tomorrow, and you won't want to miss it. Until then, take care of your heart and each other. Ethan Cole didn't plan on making headlines that night. The Manhattan skyline glittered behind him like a wall of stars as he sat alone in a private booth atop the Glass House, a rooftop restaurant favored by CEOs, celebrities, and the city's elite. A glass of aged bourbon rested in his hand, untouched. At 42, Ethan had everything, at least on paper. Billionaire, founder of Cole Equity, a name synonymous with precision and power. But beneath the sharp, tailored suit and Wall Street reputation was a man haunted by something legacy couldn't fix: loneliness. Still thinking about the succession clause? His friend and lawyer, Daniel Hart, asked across the table, breaking the silence. Ethan exhaled a slow breath, eyes still fixed on the window. "It's always about the damn legacy, Daniel. My father left me a kingdom, but only on the condition that it passes through a son. I have a daughter, not a son. The board sees her as brilliant, but not enough." Daniel leaned forward, lowering his voice. "It's 2025, man. That kind of thinking is outdated. Tell that to the bylaws." Ethan gave a humorless chuckle. "I'm tired, Daniel. Tired of playing by the rules of dead men." Then, without warning, Ethan stood, eyes locking on the entrance to the restaurant. His voice was low, but full of fire. "Let's make things interesting." Daniel looked up, confused. "What do you mean?" Ethan turned fully to the door, smile curling, like a dare. "The next woman who walks through that door, I'm going to marry her." Daniel almost choked on his drink. "You're joking." "I'm not." Ethan sat back down, the decision already made. "I've done everything the right way, built the empire, played the game. Maybe it's time for something unpredictable." Seconds passed. Then the door opened, the room hushed. No one expected her. She wasn't a model or a CEO or a senator's daughter. She wore a weathered hoodie and ripped jeans. Her hair was tangled, her shoes duct taped. She carried a backpack that had seen too many winters. And yet, her eyes, frightened, wide, determined, held the entire room captive. Ethan stood. Daniel grabbed his arm. "Ethan, don't." But Ethan stepped forward anyway. "I invited her," he said aloud, voice carrying across the marble and crystal silence. The maitre d' blinked. Guests whispered. But Ethan didn't care. He walked right up to her and extended his hand like she was royalty. "My name is Ethan Cole," he said gently. "Would you join me for dinner?" The woman hesitated. Her name was Madeline Brooks, and she had no idea that walking into that restaurant would change her life, or his, forever. Madeline didn't remember saying yes. 1 minute, she was clutching the frayed strap of her backpack, ready to be thrown out by security. The next, she was sitting across from Ethan Cole, the billionaire who just told the world he had invited her. The room still buzzed with confused whispers. Waiters pretended not to stare. Somewhere across the marble floor, someone snapped a photo. Madeline tried not to look overwhelmed, but her hands trembled as she reached for the water glass, crystal cold against her palm. Ethan, on the other hand, looked impossibly calm. Too calm. He wasn't just confident. He was used to this world, but he wasn't looking at her like she didn't belong. That's what threw her. He looked at her like he saw something she didn't even recognize in herself. "Why are you doing this?" she asked, voice low, rough from nights sleeping in. "The cold." He leaned forward, elbows on the table, tone quiet but clear. "Because I made a vow, and you walked through that door." Madeleine stared at him. "You don't even know my name." "Then let's start there." A few hours later, She found herself in a black SUV headed toward a high-rise she'd only seen on postcards. Security nodded as if she belonged. The elevator smelled like cedar and money. When the doors opened, she stepped into a penthouse with glass walls and floors that gleamed like mirrors. It didn't feel real. None of it did. Why me? She asked again, standing stiff in the entryway. Ethan shrugged, but his voice held weight. Because I've spent my life building something I thought would fill the emptiness. And it didn't. Not money, not titles, not power. Then you walked in. And suddenly, it felt like everything had a heartbeat again. She laughed. One short, sharp sound. You don't know what you're inviting in, Ethan. I've slept on benches, begged, for food, ran from things you'll never understand. Then let me try, he said. No pressure, no strings, just time. Let's see where it goes. She narrowed her eyes, unsure if this was manipulation or madness. I need space, somewhere that's mine, not yours. Done, he said, instantly. By morning, Madeline had a key to a fully furnished studio near Central Park. Warm bedding, a small kitchen, even a welcome note written in Ethan's messy scrawl. Clothes that actually fit. Books she loved. There were even etiquette lessons, offered gently, never forced, but none of it erased the question twisting in her gut. What's the catch? She spent her mornings walking the streets she used to sleep on, her afternoons in cafes, watching strangers with quiet envy, her nights staring at the ceiling, wondering how long until he changed his mind. Or she did. She didn't trust fairy tales, but something about Ethan didn't feel like a story. It felt like a risk, and somehow, for the first time in years, she didn't want to run. At first, it was just whispers, an article on some gossip blog, a blurry photo of Madeline walking out of Ethan's penthouse lobby. Then, the headlines exploded like wildfire. Billionaires. Romance sparks financial scandal. From park bench to penthouse. Who is Madeline Brooks? Coal empire under review. Amid misuse of company funds. Madeline's face was everywhere. Her name, once nothing more than a whisper to survival shelters and soup kitchens, was now splashed across morning shows and news tickers. They called her a scam artist, a gold digger, a woman who'd strategically seduced one of the most powerful men in America. None of it was true, but the truth didn't matter. Back in her small studio, Madeline sat frozen, holding her phone as the words blurred. The city outside buzzed like it always did, but inside her, the noise was deafening. And then came the knock. She opened the door to find Olivia Cole, Ethan's ex-wife. Blonde, immaculately dressed. Her presence alone carried the weight of 1,000 headlines. But Olivia didn't yell, didn't throw shade. Instead, she asked to sit. Madeline hesitated, then let her in. I'm not here to scare you, Olivia said, her voice even, eyes tired but sharp. I'm here because you deserve to know what you've stepped into. For the next hour, they sat across from each other, two women from entirely different worlds, connected by one man's choices. Olivia didn't insult Ethan. She didn't blame Madeline either. Instead, she painted a picture of the Ethan she had once loved, and the legacy that had slowly broken him. He's a good man, she said softly, but he's lived his whole life under pressure. Expectations, board politics, image. That pressure destroyed our marriage, Madeline said. Nothing, but every word landed hard. Before Olivia left, she added one last thing. I'm not worried about you stealing his money. I'm worried about you stealing his peace, because it took him years to find it again. If you stay for the right reasons. My daughter's watching. That night, Madeline couldn't sleep. She stared at the city lights through her window, heart-twisting. She didn't ask for any of this, but now she was in the middle of it, and Ethan was paying the price. Across town, Ethan stood by his own window, jaw tight, hands in his pockets, phone buzzing non-stop. 3 missed calls from Daniel. When he finally answered, his friend didn't waste time. "We've got a problem," Daniel said. "How bad?" "How board level bad. They think you're funding her lifestyle with company money. They want your resignation. There's a meeting. Tomorrow. Noon." Ethan's throat went dry. In that moment, he understood. This wasn't just about love anymore. It was war. He'd bet everything on a stranger. And now, the empire he'd built was starting to crack, because for the first time, he chose heart over legacy. But maybe, just maybe, that's what it was always missing. The next morning, the sky over Manhattan was grey, almost heavy. Rain threatened, but never fell, like the entire city was holding its breath. Outside the Coal Enterprises building, a wall of reporters gathered, cameras flashing, microphones pointed, waiting for blood. Inside, on the 36th floor, the boardroom, was ice cold, both in temperature and tone. Ethan stood at the head of the table, no tie, sleeves rolled up, jaw set. His voice didn't shake when he spoke. "Every dollar spent on Madeline came from my personal account. Not a cent of company money was used." A man across the table, sharp suit, sharper eyes, sneered. "You've brought chaos into this company. This isn't about money, Ethan. This is about judgment, optics, legacy." "I built this legacy!" Ethan fired back. "From nothing. And maybe you've all forgotten, but it wasn't built on playing it safe. It was built on risk." The room stiffened. That's when the door opened. Madeline walked in, head high, shoulders squared. She wore a simple dress, not designer, but clean and pressed. Her presence alone froze the room. Cameras outside snapped wildly through the glass walls. Murmurs rose like smoke. One board member stood. "This is private business. She needs to leave." "She stays," Ethan said, voice iron. Madeline didn't flinch. She stepped forward. "I know I wasn't invited, but I need to speak." No one stopped her, maybe because they didn't know how. "I didn't ask for this," she began. "I didn't chase him. I wasn't looking for a billionaire to fix my life. I was trying to survive. And when Ethan found me, I thought it was a joke. I thought it would collapse like everything else had. But he kept showing up. Not with money, with presence." She paused, eyes glassy but steady. "I've slept on benches. I've worn the same jeans for 30 days straight. I've eaten from trash cans. And yet this man you want to crucify, looked at me like I mattered, like I was enough." Silence. "If you think I'm here for a payout, keep your money. If you think I'm a con, run your investigations. But I won't let you destroy him for doing something rare in your world. Loving someone who didn't come from it." One board member leaned forward, older than the rest. His voice was measured. "If you're not after money, Miss Brooks, then why are you still here?" Madeline turned, locking eyes with Ethan. "Because I love him," she said. "And because, for the first time in my life, someone believed in me before I believed in myself." A beat, then another, and something shifted. The board voted. Ethan kept his seat, but under one condition. He would step back from daily operations and appoint a co-director. He didn't hesitate. "I choose Harper," he said, turning toward his daughter, seated in the back, shocked but proud. "It's her legacy now." And just like that, the room didn't belong to the past anymore. 3 months later, the chaos faded, but not entirely. The headlines had changed their tone. No longer screaming about scandal, now they whispered about redemption. Cole's next chapter. A new face. A new future. From crisis to courage, Ethan's bold move to name Harper co-director. Madeline Brooks, not a scandal, a catalyst. The wedding wasn't televised. There were no designer gowns, no celebrity guests, no PR press kit. Just a quiet autumn ceremony in Prospect Park, under a canopy of golden leaves and fading sunlight. Friends, family, people who had stayed. Ethan wore a soft grey suit. Harper stood beside him, holding the rings, her dusty rose dress fluttering in the breeze. Daniel gave a toast so unexpectedly emotional that it left half the guests wiping their eyes. Even Olivia was there, graceful, dignified, and maybe, finally, at peace. Madeline wore white, nothing extravagant, just simple, elegant, and hers. As the minister asked if she would take Ethan Cole as her husband, she let out a soft laugh. Not from mockery, but sheer disbelief at how far they had come. "I do," she whispered, voice full of truth. After the vows, while the others danced and celebrated, Ethan and Madeline slipped away to a small bench beneath the trees. No cameras, no speeches, just the rustle of leaves and the sound of their breathing. "I still can't believe this happened," she murmured, leaning into him. "Neither can I," Ethan said, wrapping his arm around her. "But I'd do it all again. The headlines, the scandal, the boardroom, everything, just to get to this moment." She looked up at him, her eyes full, not of survival, but something deeper, something she hadn't dared feel in years. Peace. They didn't go back to the penthouse. Instead, they bought a modest brownstone in Queens, 2 bedrooms, a narrow staircase that creaked, a kitchen that needed fixing, but it was theirs. Madeline refused to stop working. She kept her job at the women's shelter, answering phones, folding blankets, sitting on floors with girls who reminded her too much of herself. Ethan, for the first time in his life, slowed down. He began teaching 1 night a week at a local community college, legacy finance with heart and soul. He swapped board meetings for chalkboards, and surprisingly, he didn't miss the suits. Together, they founded the Brooks Initiative, a non-profit dedicated to transitional housing and job training for homeless women across New York City. It wasn't flashy, but it was real. One afternoon, Olivia dropped off a donation envelope. Inside was a note, handwritten and brief. "You didn't just save Ethan, you saved all of us. Olivia." Madeline stood still, fingers curled around the letter. For the first time in her life, she didn't feel like a stranger in someone else's story. She felt like the author of her own. In the end, the headlines said it best, not "billionaires fall," but "grace rises." And somewhere in the quiet, between love and purpose, Madeline finally stopped surviving. She started living. What did this story stir in you? Did it make you believe, even just for a moment, that love can be unexpected, messy, and still beautifully real? We'd love to hear what part hit you the hardest. Was it the moment Madeline walked into that restaurant? The raw speech she gave in the boardroom? Or maybe the quiet wedding under the trees where healing finally began? Drop a comment and let us know what you're feeling right now. And most of all, tell us where you're watching from. Whether you're in a big city or a small town, your voice matters here. This story isn't just about Ethan and Madeline. It's about all of us, about second chances, about the kind of love that doesn't ask you to change, but sees who you really are and stays. Would you take that kind of risk? Do you think love like that still exists today? Let's talk in the comments. Share your story, your thoughts, or even just one word that this story reminded you of. And don't forget, subscribe if you want to be here for the next story, because tomorrow we begin again with something just as unexpected.